of our seminar today, which is going to be a panel discussion. And today we're joined by Dr. Bassi and also colleagues from Nottingham Trent University, Professor David Brown, Associate Professor Dr. Hien from Hanoi National University of Education in Vietnam, and also Dr. Trang from Ho Chi Minh City University of Education. So just to give a very brief introduction about some of our panel experts. Dr. David Brown is coming from computer science background. He leads the Interactive System Research Group and is the director of the Computing and Informatics Research Centre at Nottingham Trent University. And I know David's work for many years. He's been doing a lot of wonderful work around assistive technology, using digital technology to support learners with diverse needs. It's just a portfolio of work he's led and contributed to, particularly working with colleagues across Europe and Asia as well on Erasmus and Horizon 2020 funded project. So I want to thank Professor Brown for joining us today and share his insights. Associate Professor Dr. Hien is very much a kind of experts on looking at supporting teachers in service and student teachers using digital technology in Vietnam. He's worked with a number of projects and also consulted with companies like Microsoft on using digital technology for education. Dr. Tran, I've known and worked for many years. She is a director of STEM Education Center at Ho Chi Minh City University of Education. Her background is chemistry and chemistry education. And Dr. Tran's particular interest is on supporting equality and particularly gender equality in education practices for both learners and teachers as well. So welcome all the panel experts. If you want to switch your camera on, and we'll proceed with the panel discussion. And I know the panel members have prepared some of their own thoughts and insights in relation to Dr. Bassi's talk as well. Some of the key points are raised. So if panel members can join, and who would like to start with their comments or reflections on some of the things that Dr. Bassi has just shared with us?
Vanessa, I think it might help if you actually direct. Probably
okay, so
BBC question
David,
time.
would you
We'll
like
have
to go
question
first
time.
then?
So reflections, it was really incredibly informative, and thank you. I was scribbling notes down. I have to do a few keynotes myself coming up. So you provided some very useful resources for me. So you've helped me do my talk. That's the first thing I want to acknowledge. I mean, you work in education and I work in computer science. So I'm coming at the issue in a complementary way, but slightly differently. So it was really interesting to look at some of the barriers to the introduction of AI and inclusive education, and especially around teacher confidence. And whether I've worked in a school for a long time. I work in a special education needs school. I'm a governor of the school, but I've done my main research there, stretching back 30 years in inclusive virtual environments, serious games, multimodal effect recognition. So I'm really interested in using AI to understand the emotional states of learners, whether they're things like engaged, bored, or frustrated, and how we can use that to optimize the learning intervention so that all students are supported to learn. Teachers themselves have a limited amount of time and resources, probably getting ever less and less. So can we use AI to identify the students in the greatest need, and then teachers can direct their valuable resources to those people in the greatest need. So I use multimodal effect recognition. So we use sensor data, things like cameras, and there's all the issues around safety and security of using camera data, but we have algorithmic approaches such as federated learning, and not using facial images, but reducing images of the face. If I'm looking at whether students are engaged, bored, or frustrated, it's very important to understand where they're looking, their facial emotional expression, but we reduce all of that information onto a point cloud. So we're not using in our algorithms real facial images. So all I wanted to say was thank you so much for your talk. It's really complementary to what we're doing. We're approaching it from a very computer science point of view, but obviously in the British Council project with Vanessa, we come together with people working in inclusive education is really important. And indeed, the team at Nottingham Trent here, I work very closely with education and psychology. So you've raised really important points for us. It's multimodal effect recognition whilst recognizing privacy, security concerns, and just about the algorithms I use. I've tried to get through to public data sets. I work with students with intellectual disability and autism, and I can't get through to the open access data sets no matter how hard I try. So I have to create my own data sets. And then you have issues of whether those data sets are big enough to train machine learning classifiers. So it's a really interesting field. All technology can be used for great purposes, like you've described, and some not so great purposes. And I think it's our duty here to continue to develop really meaningful and trustworthy and secure applications of AI for inclusive education. And sorry if that was too long of an introduction.
Thank you, David. We've got a question for you, which I will raise in a moment.
Yeah.
But I want to hand it over to Dr. Hien and Dr. Trang as well, if you want to share some of your thoughts and reflections based on Sida's presentation, please.
Yes, so thanks, Vanessa, and thanks for the keynote. It's so informative. And honestly, the way you present it is so clear and, kind of like tell the story from the very beginning to what the way you are doing and the result. And you ended with challenges and, as everyone can still see it, right? And because we firstly, I learned quite a lot of stuff from what you presented. But because we are in Vietnam now and trying to help teachers and students to engage more effectively and safely with AI tools and other digital tools. And as you mentioned, because I could see that Scotland government and what you presented, so that because teachers and students already prepare well with the framework for competency they need to achieve very clearly for each standard and the detail and everything. And I think based on that, it's the much easier and clearer for the educators and researchers to focus and support education and teacher and school. And so I am in Vietnam now because we still are on the way, but because it's the real and popular, so teachers everywhere try to know more about AI and try to apply it in their teaching and their maybe daily life, but usually they just know about generative AI. And there is a trend, maybe not really good for teacher, maybe a bit waste of their time. Is any new tools, any new apps, just released. They try to know it, and then they try to make good video, and then amazing things, but not really related to pedagogy or the purpose of teaching. So I really want to know a little bit more from your experience when you are doing your research, and especially doing your research with the school. Do you see kind of similar issue, and also give us some suggestion so that we can avoid it and maybe just like try to shorten our, like way to support teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trang. Should we hear what Dr. Hien's got to say, and then we can address some of the questions, because I've got quite similar questions as well to everybody on the panel. So, Dr. Hien, would you like to share some of your thoughts or perhaps questions or reflections with everyone?
Okay, thank you, Professor Sada Abasi, for your very insightful presentation. And I'm also from Hanoi in Vietnam, and I share some of my view, like Dr. Trang just said before, that right now in Vietnam, AI in education, we just, from my view, I think that we just the beginning steps. That and we found that the teacher right now, because just one of our feature of the Vietnamese teachers, that they always eager to learn new things and apply new things directly in their teaching dailies. So in some point we see that, for example, like in one of the documents issued by UNESCO, that for example, like some textbooks, if we want to use the textbooks in the schools, we must evaluate the textbook very carefully before bringing it into school. But in case of AI, there's no barrier or there's no regulation for the teacher. They use very casually. So that's why we are quite concerning right now, because as we know that because some AI tool like generative AI, due to the data limitation, so they give some and maybe be bring to the user, both teacher and student, they call like hallucinations effects, or like they like illusion. So in that, like in some cases, ChatGPT or some generative AI, they can give answer. It look like it seems correctly, but actually it's not correct. So that's a challenge that I see, that in this case of teachers, Vietnamese teacher right now, they use AI, and some teachers, they may be strongly based on AI suggestion, and then in some cases they can apply directly in that lesson, and I found that it's not so good. So I see that your project, you develop some kind of like AI literacy resources for teacher in Scotland, and so we would like to learn about your experience in this case, because in Vietnam we currently in this year, beginning of this year, I think that in this January, the Ministry of Education, we just enact circular number 2 that mentioned about the digital literacy framework for students, but not yet for teachers. So we really want to listen to your experience in this case. Thank you.
Thank you both. And in the chat, we've got some comments and questions as well. There's a comment from Sammy Cooper to talk about, as well as considering the kind of classroom teaching and learning aspects of using AI. There are other aspects such as supporting the teachers and lecturers and tutors outside classroom, and by creating and improving the efficiencies of some of these areas such as marking and administrative work, this could also free time for the teachers to do other kind of learning and teaching work directly with the students. So I think some of the areas you mentioned that also apply for this in terms of understanding the teacher's relationship with the technology, right? So how, like you said, particularly generative AI, it has degrees of agency. It generates content itself. So it's important also both for inside the classroom and outside the classroom practice to understand how teachers go about kind of understanding AI and the relationship they